welcome to another Data Vault Q&A brought to you by Iris, the best automation for your lakehouse. I'm joined once again by Nols Ebersohn. Hi, Nols. How are you?
Hey, Julian. Well, and yourself?
Pretty good. Stumbling over my words there a little bit. All right, I have a very easy job today because it's a very short question. We'll see how you go. I'm sure the answer is far more involved. But how do you handle late arriving data in the Data Vault?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Late arriving data. There's a couple of scenarios we need to be concerned here. There's late arriving data because the business process is delayed, which is just fine. It's normal data that'll flow through in due course. There's late arriving data in that we've supposed to receive, say, an hourly file or table, and we haven't received that, and we've processed on. So we started at 8 o'clock this morning. We processed 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, skipped 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. We've got that type of scenario. Mm-hmm. And then late arriving data, we could be in the content as far as the business keys are concerned. So there's a couple of scenarios that we need to tackle here. So let's start with the easiest one. Late arriving data in its usual fashion. Let's say, for instance, you have a real-time stream, and the real-time stream comes through and it goes through a load balancer, and this data is actually not flowing in sequence on the other side. That's actually not as hard, because in real-time data, we typically would include some sort of subsequence in a satellite, message date timestamp or a message ID of some sort that identifies that particular thing. And if it's late arriving, the load date timestamp will show that it's late, but the actual business context date on it, the transaction date or the message date, etc., will carry the business context. That's very important for all of these late arriving items. The business context, dates and date times in particular, needs to be within the data stream. If that is the case, then that's not a problem. So that will naturally handle the late arriving details without you having to touch anything. You just have to make sure that you have the appropriate subsequence in it in a satellite, and that will then look for the appropriate record. It's not there, thank you very much, inserts it. Or if that same record got updated a little bit later, the identifier shouldn't change, the subsequence shouldn't change, and therefore it'll check if the new one is in fact changed. It has, okay, by all means, insert a new delta. So it's very robust, very forgiving in that sense. Mm-hmm. So that's the one scenario. The next scenario that we need to deal with is, what if the business key is late arriving? And so this is typical in processes where you, say, have a couple of foreign keys, for instance, and those foreign keys come through as null. Mm-hmm. And so we have a transaction, but we don't have a customer ID yet because the customer has not been fully onboarded. And so you have a couple of those type of scenarios. Well, in the Data Vault, that particular transactional record would come through and simply say it's got a null business key. So it'll be substituted with a -1 or equivalent null business key treatment. Yep. Very important then to also have a driving key for that particular relationship to anchor it on that stable part, say the transaction number, so that if it then comes in the next day and it's updated and it's corrected, the customer is now known, that we can track those two relationships as the same relationship as it changed over time. So you need a driving key, and an effectivity satellite will then track when these changes occurred, and you can then select the correct relationship, which is eventually in sync. Again, natural standard patterns, nothing special to do. Yep. What about those pesky, oops, we forgot to load a file scenarios? Yeah. And this is where the record tracking satellite could, in fact, be very, very useful. And so to affect this without having to roll back and replay all of the data, you need to extend the record tracking satellite to include the hash difference of the key as in where you've observed it. Mm-hmm. And so now you can actually use the record tracking satellite to track what you've received versus what you have. And this is where the business dates become absolutely critical. You'll go into your record tracking satellite, you'll find the business date that is the most appropriate to compare to for what you've received. Let's say, for instance, we've received the 9 o'clock file, not the 10 o'clock, but the 11 o'clock file. So the 11 o'clock file may have been different to the 9 o'clock file. And so it would have inserted an appropriate delta, and that's great. If you then process and you get the 10 o'clock file and you process it late, you can't compare it to the 11 o'clock file. You have to compare it to the 9 o'clock file. And so that's where you need to select, find me the business context that is smaller or equal to what I've received and the latest order trail version of that. So it's a dual filter, which will then compare the correct result with the correct delta would be identified.
Yeah.
There's a sneaky little thing that what happens if we receive $10 at 9 o'clock and $10 at 11 o'clock, but $8 at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so that flip-flop type scenario, we need to cater for too. And this is where you can easily say, hang on, if 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock are the same, then I know that if my 10 o'clock is different, I need to insert not one deltas, but two deltas. Yeah. Because you have the record of what you've received, and you just carry the hash difference. You don't care about anything else, just the hash difference on the extended record tracking satellite. So that's a little extra technique that you could use, and that works well, particularly if you don't have a data lake, you don't have a persistent landing zone, you don't have persistent staging area, and you still want to make sure that you get those correct deltas identified. Very robust, very forgiving, much more elegant, much less storage footprint than a landing zone and a persistent staging area and the like. Sure. And so if you don't have the budget for that, it's certainly there. Note, your record source tracking satellites do get very, very big, lots of rows very, very quickly. That's okay. It's still less than maintaining a full landing zone and a full persistent staging area.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the more on the advanced side of late arriving records.
Yeah. You know what I like though about Data Vault is that it has these answers, right? You know, when you are building out your integration layer or your enterprise layer, and you're going along and going, well, I'm going to work this out for myself. How are you going to think of all of these scenarios, right? That's what I love about Data Vault. It says, don't worry, we've got you covered. Someone's thought about this at some point. You know, these problems have been addressed. I think that's Absolutely. A really great thing. Yeah.
And this technique of the extended record tracking satellite has been published since 2019. So it's been around a while and it's been proven successful. So quite useful.
Well, I mean, I know it's not the first time we've chatted about it. So,
Fair enough.
Absolutely. No, that's really good. Thank you for answering that question, and we'll see you on the next time.
Thank you. Have a great day.